think either one or two.
So if the only microphone you have available is on the camera, it's probably a case of speaking fairly close to the camera if you can. It's a bit echoey at the moment, so we're trying to get a nice direct sound for our interpreters if we can.
Yes, I do understand, yes. We'll try our best, but let's see when they will join. They were supposed to join from their own laptops, but it seems there was a last-minute change and they might move to this room.
Understood, of course, yes, yeah.
Right. And
so
there might be logging out, and then they will join as a VIP. So, because they have VIP link, so they might join from the same room, but with VIP link. So it will be a different name, I would say. But I'm just testing the room by itself.
So we can see the camera. And you can see the camera also. If you wish to, you can click on the button on the top left, live video, so you can just see how your camera's set. But
yes,
we will need to arrange a position to speak from close to the camera as things are currently set up, so we get a nice clear sound if we can.
Yes, we can manage that.
Sure.
I can actually get closer to the camera, which has a built-in mic more to the speaker.
Sure.
So that he will be heard better in a better way.
Perfect, thank you. As close as you can. And you could always check in the Kudo settings to see if there's any other options for microphones, but it depends what you have.
I am the technician of the room, and I'm aware of that issue with the Kudo.
Understood. Okay.
I'm afraid that's what we have to live with at the moment.
Of course, understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for you, Ben.
That's a pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I just want to note that we have gone live.
مرحبا جميعا وأهلا بكم. أريد أن أعلمكم أننا مباشرة على الهواء، فأهلا وسهلا بكم في هذه الندوة.
So welcome to Roida El Haj. If you wish to test, please feel free to unmute. Yes, I think we can hear you.
Thank you. This is a test.
Yes, so are you using a headset or laptop mic?
Yes, headset.
Okay, could you just tap the mic? Okay, the actual sound is very good actually from your laptop. I'm not sure if the headset's selected though. If you had time. Yes.
Would you try this without a headset then?
Okay, I think it's better with the headset. I'll just mute. If we could go back to the headset, please. I do apologise. I think I may have been guiding you incorrectly there. So,
can you hit me with the headset?
Can you just lift the microphone towards your mouth when you speak?
Okay, would that work now?
Much better. Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect
excellent. And thank you.
Great. Thank you. Many thanks. And welcome to Malika Kalakovic. Apologies if I mispronounce anyone's names. Yes, I think we can hear you.
Good afternoon. Can we make a switch check again? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Are you on a laptop mic?
No, actually, I have a headset.
Oh, okay. Maybe could you just maybe lift the mic towards your mouth if possible? Is it
better now?
Is it a headset like this?
Yeah, yes, it is.
So can you just tap the mic? So I think currently we're hearing the laptop mic. So
Okay.
if you are able to change that in settings,
Settings.
you go to media settings, and then maybe
Yeah.
there may be a setting there called communication mic or external. Every
Is it better
laptop
now?
is
Is it
different.
better now?
I think that may have changed. Can you just lift the mic towards your mouth now?
Is it better now?
It's the same, and actually the laptop mic isn't too bad. It's a fairly good sound. But if you're able to change this to a headset, feel free. You may need to click OK so we can hear a difference. Otherwise, speaking close to the laptop would be a
and
good.
Also, I have a classic headset. Maybe I can try to change it.
I think the headsets that work best are either USB or on the little small headphone connector that you get with mobile phone.
Yeah, I will try with the classic headset.
Sure, I wouldn't change too much because your sound from your laptop's pretty good actually, as long as you speak close to the laptop.
Okay. Just a second.
But of course, feel free to try. Thank you. So this is good advice for everyone. You can always check your settings here.
And now?
That's the
Can you hear me
same.
now?
We can hear you clearly now. I think it's the same though. It's still the laptop mic. The best way to tell you is to tap the mic with your finger.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Obviously, no.
We can hear you. I don't think you can hear us.
I cannot hear you.
So you may want to change your speaker setting as I'm showing on the screen. Hopefully that's clear.
And now?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing.
Yeah. I can hear much better. Yeah.
Great. So I think the sound is good from your laptop. So I think if you go with that for now.
Actually, now I have a typical headset. I change it to the classical headset. I believe that's the reason that you can hear me very well now.
I think we may be hearing you through the laptop mic still, but as long as you can hear us clearly as well.
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
The sound from your laptops is good quality from the laptop. If you could just stay fairly close to the laptop, that would be perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Many thanks. So if anyone else would like to test their camera and mic, please feel free to switch the microphone on. I can see we have Lynn Eade, Angela Deher. If you wish to test, please feel free to go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Welcome, sir. Yes, we can hear you very well, and we can see you very well also.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Many thanks. If anyone else would like to test that's joined the floor, please feel free to go ahead and switch your microphone on via the central buttons at the bottom, and we can confirm we will hear you and see you. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, sir. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Can the cam now?
That's a nice clear sound. We don't see the camera currently, but we hear you very well.
That's okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Carmen Rosa. Yes, we hear you and see you very well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Many thanks. Thank you. So if anybody else on the floor would like to test, please feel free to turn your camera and mic on. If you're on the floor, your camera and mic should be red, just to confirm.
Hello, Ben. This is Lynn.
Welcome, Lynn. Yes, we can hear you very well, loud and clear.
Thank you.
Perfect. Many thanks. So if any other participants would like to test, you'd be very welcome to. If you're on the floor, your camera and mic should be lit up red, which means they're still turned off, but it means they're accessible. So you can turn them on if you wish to test. You'd be very welcome just before we start. Thank you.
هلا. صباح الخير. بحب رحب بالحضور جميعا. أهلا وسهلا فيكم بالندوة الحوارية حول موضوع المصادقة على الاتفاقية الدولية لحماية جميع الأشخاص من الاختفاء القسري. برحب فيكم بالنيابة عن المكتب الإقليمي للمفوضية السامية لحقوق الإنسان من منطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا. رح نبدأ مع الكلمات الافتتاحية مع حضرة الدكتور زياد عاشور يلي هو نائب رئيس الهيئة الوطنية للمفقودين والمخفيين قسرا بلبنان. تفضل أستاذ زياد.
مرحبا، يعطيكم العافية. بداية.
Hello. First, in the name of Judge Salim Osta, President of the Commission, and the members of the Commission, we would like to thank you for inviting us to take part in this webinar, and we hope that the participation of the National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared in Lebanon in this webinar is the start of the participation of all stakeholders in this issue, very critical issue that we would like to welcome. First, it is very difficult to speak about any topic without going back to our reality, not on the basis of the mere reality, but in an attempt to make a relationship between the crisis we are living today in Lebanon and the situation. And here we're talking about the economic and social unprecedented crisis, and as everybody's saying since the 19th century. And we believe that this is a crisis of bread and staying alive. And I believe that the issue of the enforced disappearance is not related to this reality, or is not a priority today. But this is a very naive analysis, however, because the harsh situation we are living today is directly linked to putting aside the rights of all those disappeared people and their parents. And what we mean by that is the failure of this state of law and the state that is based on justice and human rights, and the implementation of laws. And this policy that we are following today, and this policy is and the solution should be to stop accepting the situation and to start tackling the rights of those disappeared people. The right to know the circumstances of the fate of the disappeared is a natural right for the parents of those disappeared, and does not accept any exemption, and nobody has the right, whether the authority or the government, to have to behave in this way. And so this is a sine qua non right, whether we're talking about the international conventions, including the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance in Lebanon, which is the topic of our meeting today. Consequently, this natural law and this natural right is based on human rights. However, everybody has the role to play, and after the civil war in Lebanon, we had the Taif agreement, and we have the constitution amended. However, the reconstruction of the state, that is the state of laws, we can't. Mr. Michel Moussa, please turn off your mic. Mr. Michel Moussa. Dr. Michel. Excuse us, Dr. Ashur. Would you please open your camera? Activate your camera, Dr. Ashur. We can't see you, however. Please, go ahead. I was saying, in this critical period of Lebanon's history, the state of law was put aside, and the principles of law were put aside, and we went against nature, and the result was the authority and the government that we have today, and that is the cause of all our ailments and suffering. And because of all what we've been through and all these circumstances, I believe that we are here today. So after the civil war, nothing was done to cater for the rights of the disappeared, and especially the right to know the fate of the disappeared persons. We are very far away from the state of law and the state of rights, and that is based on the institutions and above all the free judiciary. And today, as we can see, all these rights have been forgotten. What I'm trying to say is that the issue of the disappeared is critical and vital in the reconstruction and regaining the rights. It is a priority in reconstruction, the state of law and the state of rights, and we should not forget these rights, because this is a main component of reconstructing the state of law. And if we want to reconstruct and rebuild the Second Republic, we need to tackle the issue of the disappeared persons. On another hand, the struggle continued despite all obstacles, and we should really salute the struggle of the parents of the disappeared persons, and clearly those persons are following this issue, and they are trying to put things in place. They are trying to put on the right track the relationship between the citizens and the government, and by that the article, the law 218, paved the way for the creation of the committee for the National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared in Lebanon. We hope that our work is fruitful, and we hope also that the Lebanese government ratifies the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons for Enforced, that is complementary with the Article 105 and the priorities of the National Commission. And we would like to affirm as well that the priority of the Commission is also is complementary with the Convention. However, Article 105 does not replace the mechanisms and the committees emerging from the convention, and we hope that we tackle this issue as well, because unfortunately the authority in Lebanon knows very well how to use these and how to circumvent the issue and use these approaches, whereby they say that we have a national commission and consequently there is no need to ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. And this is also goes in line with the issue of combating violence and combating torture, and especially in the report of that were submitted to the International Commissions of Human Laws, and they used also the same pretext that we have a commission against torture and there's no need to ratify the International Convention against Torture. That is why the National Commission does not replace this convention, because they are both complementary, however different. And ratifying international convention, whether in those related to human rights, is the clear way and the straight way in order to be on the right path towards human rights protection, especially when it comes to the Convention on the protection of all persons from enforced disappearance. And we would like to reiterate the importance of ratifying this international convention so that it becomes complementary with the mandate of the Commission and with Article 105/2018. And based on that, the National Commission welcomes this virtual webinar that is organized by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, along with all our partners. And we would like to thank you all, and we would like also to commend the invitation, inviting us to participate in this webinar, because although the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance is essential, and even if this convention today is not binding, however, for the Commission, it will be a guiding, it will be as guiding principles, as especially that we are still at the beginning of our work. We are still having we are still drafting our foundation, and especially that all principles of this commission be in line with international standards. And that is why, and even if this convention is not a binding convention, it will guide us in our work, and it will guide us in the implementation of the articles and the laws that are applied in Lebanon. We hope that discussing this convention would be objective and transparent, especially in view of the approach of the authority in Lebanon. In addition, and in this opportunity, in this event, we consider that there is space for discussing the establishment of this commission, and to reiterate that the National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared in Lebanon has strong grounds despite all the difficulties that it is facing, especially in light of not adopting a budget for this commission, and all delays in appointing the members, the 4 independent members of this commission Commission, knowing that the chairman or the president of this commission informed the concerned parties and communicated with the Ministry of Justice. And recently, the Minister of Justice was informed about the importance of appointing the members, and he promised us that this will be done soon. Finally, I would like to reiterate my thank to all stakeholders supporting our work. And I would also like to convey my thanks, the thanks of and the gratitude of the President, Salim Osta, and all members of the committee of the Commission, and their gratitude to this webinar. And we wish you a fruitful and success to this webinar. And thank you once again for inviting us. Thank you once again, Dr. Ziad, for all this information. Now I would like to welcome His Excellency Deputy Michel Moussa, the Chairman of the Human Rights Committee of the Lebanese Parliament. The floor is yours. Please activate your mic. Would you please activate your mic, please? Can you hear me now? Dr. Ashur, would you please turn off your mic? Can you hear me now? Yes, please, go ahead. We can hear you. Yes, clearly. Yes, we can see you and hear you. Hello. Apologies for this technical glitch. Ladies and gentlemen, before starting or tackling our main topic today, allow me first to thank the Office of High Commissioner for the Human Rights for giving me the opportunity as the Chairman of the Human Rights Committee of the Lebanese Parliament to participate in this webinar and for insisting on my participation. And thank you for the Office for supporting all issues related to human rights in Lebanon. As it is well known, the civil war in Lebanon 1975-1990 led to catastrophic results at the human and economic levels, where it left around 41,000 people missing or who were killed, and more than 144,000 persons killed. Ladies and gentlemen, tackling the past and facing this past is a vital sector, and it is our duty in order to provide a safe and sustainable future for future generations. Consequently, and given our responsibility, the responsibility we assume, I would like to assure you our full support in this issue and following up all its details at the legislative level in the parliamentary committees. Historically, the work and the struggle of the parents of those disappeared and their patience and their natural clinging to this cause resulted in the promulgation of Law 105 that were issued in 2018 and the creation of the National Commission in 2020. And from this platform and forum, we would like to ask everybody not to lose hope. And despite that, Lebanon has been suffering from several crises. The human rights remain a priority that can be forgotten. The promulgation of law is the ratification and is the assurance of the authorities to reveal the truth and consecration of this cause. And along that, there are also the duties and obligations to follow up on this important cause. Lebanon has ratified the Convention of the Protection of Persons from Enforced Disappearance in 2007. Still, it still hasn't ratified it, and by signing it, this proves that it is responsible to find the truth. And as a chairman of the Human Rights Committee, I would like to our reassurance that all international conventions for human rights have been the way to reveal the truth. And you all know that the obstacles in Lebanon are mainly political conflicts and religious conflicts. However, we should not surrender, because together we can reach our objectives at the level of human rights and protecting and achieving human rights. As to the ratification of international convention, I believe that this is a political issue, and it has been a political issue, especially when it comes, and there are several draft laws that have been submitted by the cabinet to the parliament. However, these have not been ratified yet. However, it is not, the issue is not related only to this convention, because there are other causes and other conventions, and among these, the convention related to the rights of this disabled in Lebanon, and this is a permanent cause that is being submitted to the government, from the Lebanese government to the Syrian government, and it is still stuck. However, we will continue our fight, and we hope that with this new cabinet, and as you may all know that in Lebanon we have had these voids and the difficulty in formation of the successive cabinets. We hope that with this new government we will be able to come out to a solution in order to be able to ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons. Ladies and gentlemen, the justice is vital to know the fate of those, the fate of the disappeared persons. The ratification of and the implementation of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance is vital to combat impunity for the crimes of enforced disappearances, and to reveal the truth about the circumstances and the fate of the disappeared person, and also the rights of victims and justice and reparation, because until today, before the application of this convention, there were no binding conventions. That is why we reassure the importance of ratifying this convention. Ladies and gentlemen, the right to dignity and the right to not being a victim to torture, and the right to a just trial, as well as other rights, are the main rights in building democracy. And based on that, I would like to reiterate and affirm that we are seeking to promote human rights and the principal and basic rights effectively, and to implement all declarations and covenants related to human rights. And I would like to affirm again our engagement to follow up this cause with you and with all concerned authorities, especially given the critical aspect of the enforced disappearance issue. Thank you, Dr. Musa, for all these important information. I would like to give the floor now to Ms. Ruwaida Al-Haj, the regional representative of the Office of the High Commissioner for the Human Rights in the Middle East region in North Africa. Thank you, Ms. Lin, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. the Minister, and the
زيد عاشور، الهيئة الوطنية للمفقودين وأعضاء الهيئة.
Your Excellency, Mr. Michel Moussa, Mr. Ziad Ashour, Mrs. Dagher, and Mrs. Ayman, Mr. Ayman Ahmed, members of the UN Committee on Enforced Disappearance, dear colleagues from the International Red Cross Committee, and dear national institutions on human rights, dear colleagues from Jordan, Lebanon, dear diplomats, dear experts, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to salute you, and I would like to salute the families of the forcibly disappeared persons. You know, the regional office of the OHCHR will be having a very brief presentations because I want to give the floor to the members of the Commission, and I would like to give the floor also to the representatives of the Ministry of Justice. I want this discussion to be very fruitful. So we are deploying efforts in the field of enforced disappearance in coordination with our General Secretariat and the specialized institutions of the United Nations, including the agencies present in Lebanon, in cooperation, of course, with the civil society, the Lebanese authorities, and universities in Lebanon, without forgetting the families of victims. And we have organized many sessions and workshops, especially with Lebanese universities, in order to pave the way for the ratification of the convention and about the adoption of law number 105 of year 2018. Enforced disappearance is one of the most serious crimes, and this practice, whenever it is committed systematically, becomes a crime against humanity as stipulated by the convention, and we need to protect people from enforced disappearance. This would be a victory for victims. This would limit the spread of this crime. This would also allow for the payment of reparation, and this would also give more credibility to the Lebanese state. I would like to welcome you again in this encounter, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. I give you the floor, Mrs. Lenaid. Thank you, Mrs. Ruwaida. I would like to thank you for your clarifications. I would like to show you a very short video that was prepared by the regional office of the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights. This is a video about a call for the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons Against Enforced Disappearance. There have been cases of abduction and disappearances in Lebanon. There are people whose fate is still unknown. We have missing and forcibly disappeared persons in Lebanon. Enforced disappearance is a serious violation of human rights. It's a crime and an offense according to the Human Rights International Law. Many conventions have been signed by Lebanon. However, Lebanon did not ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons Against Enforced Disappearance. The Parliament adopted law number 105 in 2018 for the creation of a National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared in Lebanon in order to inquire about the fate of those people. And the law number 105 gave the members of the community the right to know about the fate of the missing people. There will be no reconciliation unless justice is administered. And we need to enforce Law 105 and support the work of the National Commission, ratify the International Convention on Enforced Disappearance. Thank you very much. I would like to welcome Mrs. Carmen Rosa Villa. She is the chair of the United Nations Committee on Enforced Disappearances. Mrs. Carmen Rosa Villa will talk about the importance of this convention for all countries of the world, and she will talk about the mechanisms and importance of joining this international instrument. Mrs. Carmen, you have the floor.
Good morning, everybody. I'm in the South America in Lima, Peru. Excellencies and distinguished participants, dear colleagues, thanks to OSCHR office for inviting us to participate in this virtual conference to highlight the most relevant aspect of the International Convention for Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. Together with my colleague Milica Kolakovic and Juan Pablo Alban, member of the board of the Committee on Enforced Disappearances, I'm pleased to participate in this conference. Enforced disappearances are not only a problem of the past. Regrettably, today, they continue to be a practice that practically covers the entire universal geographic and all social and political segments. Hundreds of thousands of people have disappeared and continue to disappear, and in some contexts, it is increasing, such as during the migration, human trafficking, and the pandemic of COVID-19. In this context, women and children are in a situation of vulnerability and in many cases also become victims of enforced disappearances, sexual violence, and other types of violence. Why is it so important to ratify the Convention? The Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances is the first universally binding human rights instrument on enforced disappearances, filling a legal gap in international human rights law that hindered the effective protection of all persons from this crime. Becoming parties to the conventions, states show their support for the victims of enforced disappearances worldwide, who have been struggling over the past 40 years to achieve this option of this treaty. The convention is an instrument of support for states and victims. Its committee, the monetary body of the convention, has its main mandate to support the states and their authorities in preventing enforced disappearances and combating impunity in this field. Until the convention is ratified, the Committee on Enforced Disappearances does not have the competence to intervene regarding in a country, so it cannot support victims, civil society organizations that support them, the national human rights institutions, and state institutions to fight against enforced disappearances, as it could do if the country had ratified that convention. The convention represents a milestone in preventing and combating enforced disappearances. First, recognize the autonomous right of every person not to be subject to enforced disappearances. Second, recognize that any person who has suffered harm as a direct result of unenforced disappearances is a victim of such an act. It established a series of measures that the state must adopt to prevent and eradicate enforced disappearances and address the terrible effects of its crime on individuals. The Convention provides the most comprehensive international legal framework to fight against enforced disappearances. Indeed, as in the case of other human rights treaties, the Convention for the Protection of All Persons Against enforced disappearances only apply to states that have ratified it. The need that the convention be ratified to be applicable makes it a strong instrument. Through the ratification, states commit to respect the principles of the convention. Through ratification, states officially demonstrate their commitment to contribute to eradicate and preventing this crime, and confirm that they are ready to work together with the committee to this end. This may be seen as an obvious objective, but unfortunately, this is not the case. Such commitment remains far too rare, as only 64 of the 193 member states of the United Nations have ratified the convention today. I just wanted to let you know that this situation is of concern. First, it limits the possibility for the committee to perform its mandate. Second, it seems to indicate a lack of involvement of the state to eradicate and prevent enforced disappearances. Of course, we all know that such an impression cannot be generalized. Nevertheless, this impression is very often shared in the discussion related to the low level of ratification of the convention. There are three aspects of the convention that I would like to highlight as follows. First, the convention is a guiding instrument to state authorities to identify measures to be taken, including legislative measures, to prevent, combat, and eradicate enforced disappearances, combat impunity of perpetrators, investigating and punish all acts of enforced disappearances, protect and guarantee the rights of victims, including the rights to truth and reparation. Second, the convention is an instrument of prevention. The convention has many relevant features of all the states, even those that do not have a history of enforced disappearances, to prevent their perpetration in a territory under jurisdiction. These include the prohibition of secret detention, the right of persons deprived of their liberty to communicate with and be visited by any person of their choice and or by their consular authority in the case of the foreigners, non-refoulement, and the obligation to compile and maintain official records and or registers of persons deprived of their liberty shall be made promptly available to any judicial or other competent authorities upon request. Third, the convention is an instrument of the cooperation between states in the fight against enforced disappearances. It indeed provides mutual legal assistance measures between state parties in connection with an offense of enforced disappearances. State parties shall cooperate with each other to assist victims of enforced disappearances in searching for locating and releasing disappeared persons, and in the event of death, in exhuming and identifying them and returning their remains. State parties shall also cooperate with each other in providing all evidence at their disposal to proceed to the search of a disappeared person and in supplying any information which could help to bring to trial the person suspect of having committed unenforced disappearances, and if they are found guilty, in punishing them. The guiding principles for search for disappeared persons are an important and helpful guide to address obstacles to overcome bad practices and generally improve the search process in any state, whether or not it is a party to the convention. To sum up, the principles of the convention were defined based on the experiences, and they were thoroughly discussed and analyzed. Moreover, they were accepted as a basis by all member states who adopted the convention. Then, we all know that implementing the principle of the convention is a long process that cannot be achieved from one day to the other. The committee is precisely here to support the competent authorities to identify the challenges and the measures that should be taken so that the rights and obligations of the convention become a reality for all. The Committee on Enforced Disappearances is a monitoring body of the convention. The committee is the body that monitors the implementation of the International Convention by its states party and was established under Article 26, Paragraph 1 of the convention's term by state parties of the convention. Each member must be a national of a state party and high moral character and have recognized competence in the field of international human rights. By offering our expertise on crimes of enforced disappearances, the members of the committee have as their main mandate to support the states and their authorities in putting an end to this means of terror and combating impunity in this field. On 23rd December 2020, the Committee on Enforced Disappearances celebrate 10 years since the entry in force of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. Over the past 10 years, our committee has worked hard to support the state parties in implementing the convention and victims, civil society organizations, national human rights institutions to prevent and eradicate enforced disappearances. Over the years, the committee has progressively built up its jurisprudence by examining initial and follow-up state reports, requests for urgent actions, and individual communications. To eradicate and prevent enforced disappearances require the effort of the whole world, and we need more states to ratify the convention. Furthermore, prevent similar violations in the future in all parts of the world. This is a fundamental aim of the convention. To sign the convention, as Lebanon did, is a positive step, but nevertheless does not provide any competence to the committee. In that connection, I would like to remind you that in the context of the UPR, Lebanon has received various recommendations inviting the state to ratify, and Lebanon has accepted these recommendations. The committee offers its full support to the states to attend to any questions in that regard. Moreover, we hope that the instrument of ratification can soon be deposited before the Secretary General of the United Nations. Thank you very much for your kind attention for this session. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you.
Many thanks, Ms. Carmen, for this valuable intervention. So I would like now to welcome Mr. Juan Pablo Albain. He is a member of the Commission on Enforced Disappearance. The floor is yours, Mr. Juan.
Thank you very much. Good morning for us. Good afternoon for you. It's an honor to address you, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, to briefly explain the methods of work that the committee employs in order to fulfill its mandate. As Carmen Rosa, our chair, had already explained, the committee is comprised of 10 experts that basically have the duty to accompany the states in fulfilling the obligations contained in the convention. To do so, the committee addresses both general situations and specific cases. The mandate of the committee comprises the examination of reports submitted by the states parties and the measures taken to give effect to the obligations under the convention. This according to Article 29 of the convention, and I will explain further how we examine the reports later on. But first, I will explain all the measures that we can take. Secondly, we can send urgent action requests to the state in order to for the state to adopt measures, including interim measures, to locate and protect a disappeared person. This according to Article 30 of the International Convention. We can also receive and consider communications from individuals claiming to be victims of a violation of a given right contained in the convention by a state party. This according to Article 31 of the convention. We can receive and consider communications in which a state party to the convention claims that another state party to the convention is not fulfilling its obligations under the treaty. This according to Article 32 of the convention. We can undertake visits to any state party after consultation with the state concerned. And during the visit and before the visit, we can receive information indicating that the state could be violating several provisions of the convention. This under Article 33. Actually, we are preparing the first visit of the committee during these first 10 years of activities of the committee had not carried out visits under Article 33. However, after a lengthy negotiation, finally, the Mexican government has accepted the visit of the committee, and we will carry out a visit from November 15 to November 27, which will be the first carried out by the committee. And finally, we can submit to the attention of the Secretary General of the United Nations well-founded indications that enforced disappearance is being practiced as a widespread or systematic crime in the territory under the jurisdiction of a given state party. This under Article 34 of the convention. I would like now to explain a bit further how we deal with general
نعتذر الهيئة الأستاذ خوان.
Guys, apparently Mr. Juan Pablo is facing a technical issue. I'd like to invite all the attendees to add their questions or interventions in the chat box, in the messages box. Please feel free to add there your suggestions, your questions to the experts who are with us today.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
Yes.
My screen
Please.
Froze. But I will continue. I was explaining that the committee is not allowed to review periodic reports by the state. And this is probably very important to point out, because the committee has the duty to verify that the states are complying with their obligations. However, in order to do so, what we do is that we receive an initial report on all the provisions of the treaty, on how the state is complying with them. And later on, we request information to follow up how the states are complying with our recommendations and are assessing the aspects that for us were concerning aspects. And this is important to note, because the states will not undertake the obligation to present reports every given number of years. The follow-up to the concluding observations that we issue after the initial report have to do with particular areas of concern for us. And what we expect is that the state will submit information on what additional measures it has decided to adopt in order to comply with those particular recommendations, usually 3 recommendations. Later on, according to the provisions of the convention, the committee can request additional information on past issues and also on new problematic areas that we discovered through the information provided in general by civil society organizations. So it is important to note that we don't have periodic reports, and it is the only treaty body monitoring the implementation of a given treaty of the UN that does not receive periodic reports. I would also like to present some additional information on the visits. When the committee receives information on grave violations to the convention, it will contact the state in order to ask the state to authorize a visit by the committee. Of course, due to the nature of our activities, we will not impose the visit on the state, but the state will have to agree to the visit. These visits enable the committee to have a more direct contact with the reality in the country and to obtain more elements to provide useful assistance to the state on how to implement the convention and how to comply with the recommendations issued by the committee during the examination of the state reports. And the visits are not conceived as a mechanism to put pressure on the state, but rather as a cooperation mechanism to have a better dialogue in order to fulfill the obligations under the convention. And finally, I would also like to mention 2 specific aspects of our work in cases, in specific situations, not general situations, which are the urgent actions and the individual complaints. An urgent action, as I explained before, is a request submitted by the committee to the state in order to search, locate, and protect a disappeared person and to investigate the disappearance. These are under Article 30 of the Convention. This request could be submitted after a petition is presented to the committee by the relatives of the disappeared person or their legal representatives, or any other person that has a legitimate interest in the whereabouts of the disappeared person. Of course, it is expected that first the interested party will present the request to search, locate, and protect the person directly to the government. But if it is not possible, or if it has been presented but the government has not reacted to that petition, then they can come to us and request an urgent action. So I wanted to address the question of individual complaints. As I mentioned, under Article 31 of the Convention, any individual claiming to be the victim of a violation of a right protected by the convention can submit a complaint, what is called by other committees a communication. So the individual communication or complaint procedure only applies to those state parties that have made a specific declaration accepting the competence of the committee to examine individual complaints under Article 31. And this declaration can be made, and we hope that Lebanon will make it when the state becomes a party to the International Convention or any time afterwards. The individual complaint is sort of a last resort once the victims have exhausted all domestic remedies in order to protect their rights under the convention. And the decision that we issue under this particular procedure is a quasi-judicial decision that has a binding effect on the state. And we will recommend the specific reparations that should be provided to the victim in the particular case, depending on the rights that have been violated. Finally, I would briefly like to also refer to something that Carmen Rosa in her presentation already mentioned, which are the guiding principles for the search of the disappeared. And this is a very useful instrument. I think for the National Commission in Lebanon, this would be very useful to adopt a national policy on the search of the disappeared, modeled on these guiding principles. The guiding principles were adopted in April 2019, and they seek to consolidate good practices in searching effectively for disappeared persons. And they have been developed on the basis of the accumulated experience of the committee in the first years of work of the committee, and particularly on the accumulated experience under Articles 29 and 30, meaning examination of reports and urgent actions. The guiding principles address the question on how the search should be conducted, respecting human dignity, how there should be a public policy in place in order to search for the disappearances, how disappearances should be addressed with a differential approach, considering the particularities of the victim, how families should participate in search processes, how the search should start without delay, how until you find the disappeared person, the state has a continued obligation on searching the disappeared, and how the search efforts should follow a comprehensive strategy that basically should end with an efficient effort, a coordinated effort, an appropriate effort to actually find the disappeared person. So I think this is a very important instrument that also the government should take into account, even while you are considering ratifying the convention. You can start using these guiding principles, and some states that are not parties to the convention yet are already using these guiding principles as a reference on how to conduct search efforts for disappeared persons. That would be my presentation, and I'm open for any questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Juan Pablo, for this valuable intervention, and also for all these information about the instruments in place and that the member states can use, and also the national commissions can make use of it in their search for the missing and disappeared persons. Now we have a question from Ms. Carmen Abu Jawde. She is the member of the National Commission on Enforced Disappearance in Lebanon. She is asking Mr. Carmen Rosa about, the number of states who ratified the convention so far. So in your presentation, Ms. Carmen, you mentioned the number, or maybe Mr. Juan Pablo can answer this question.
Yes, I mentioned in that
Yes,
right now,
as of today, 64
states
states have ratified the convention. Sorry, Carmen Rosa, go on.
No, don't worry. 64 states ratified the convention, and we try to have more and more states to ratify. The signatures that we have is 47 states signed the convention, but they didn't already ratify the convention. That's why Argentina and France have a big campaign in order to call all the states to ratify the convention. Universality is very important, and that's why this event is very useful, not only for you, but only for all members of the world that could ratify the convention. This is important because the convention gives you an authority and victims really, really good instrument to fight against impunity and, of course, to eradicate the enforced disappearances.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carmen Rosa. We have another question from Mr. Saad-Eddin Shatila to MP ميشيل موسى. أستاذ ميشيل، عم بيسألك الأستاذ سعد الدين عن موضوع مجموعة الأمم المتحدة، مجموعة
Mr. Saad-Eddin is asking you on the working group of the committee that asked for a visit to Lebanon in 2015, but Lebanon has not agreed on that visit to date. So we are asking whether you have any follow-up or updates on this request to visit Lebanon, to visit the committee, or on any other updates related to the special rapporteur related to the independence of lawyers and judges and their visits. Mr. Michel is muted. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you. I do not have any information on this issue, but all I know is that all the UN agencies are taking appointments with us, and they are actually visiting us and coming over to Lebanon. But I can follow up on this. I will follow up, and I will see why is there a delay in giving them appointments for meetings. And I hope it's not all about political reasons or related to the delay in the formation of the government in the past months. But all I know is that when it comes to all the different issues, as far as I know, no one is asking us for appointments or for visits that we are not giving them appointments, especially that a lot of organizations are able to visit us. And this is also part of the convention. So on this issue in particular, I do not have enough updates. But as I said, everyone requesting a visit is granted a visit. I will follow up on this.
Colleagues from the CED, what are the reservations that the state members presented to the committee or ratified, the convention based on it? And do you think that these reservations are true?
لا لي سؤال.
لا مستر للزملاء من
Okay.
This question is addressed to the UN Commission.
However, we have to bear in mind that this is a human rights treaty. This means that the core provisions of the treaty, of course, cannot be subject to reservations. Some states have issued reservations. In practice, they have not curtailed the possibility of the committee to supervise the implementation of obligations under Article 29, receiving periodic reports. And in general, there are no reservations that could actually block the committee's possibility to request urgent actions, for instance. What has happened, indeed, is that many have not decided to authorize expressly the committee by recognizing its competence to receive individual complaints. But I would insist, it has to be taken into account that this is a human rights treaty and that core provisions of the treaty cannot be subject to reservations, because otherwise the effet utile of the treaty would not be complied with, right? So we hope that once Lebanon ratifies the convention, it will do so without any sort of reservations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Juan. We have another question, please, from Mr. El-Haj Ahmed. Mr. El-Haj Ahmed is saying that don't you think that, not acknowledging the mandate of the committee in receiving and following up on individual complaint according to Article 31 of the Convention is not really appropriate? Mr. Juan or Ms. Carmen?
Well, as I explained before, the committee has different tools. So even if the state decides not to recognize the competence of the committee to receive individual complaints, the committee will still have the possibility to address specific cases through its urgent actions mechanism. And furthermore, also, if there is a pattern, if there is this systematic or generalized practice of enforced disappearances, the committee also has other mechanisms to address the situation, like requesting the state to authorize a visit, or like submitting the matter to the attention of the Secretary General, which in turn will submit the matter to the attention of the General Assembly. So I think the versatility of the committee is based mostly on the different mechanisms that we can use in order to address situations. But of course, the ideal scenario is that the state will accept the competence of the committee to receive individual complaints.
Thank you. I would like to add something very important. Through the urgent actions, the committee requests to a state party to provide investigation of any action taken to search for the disappeared person and investigate the alleged disappearance, some evidence, patterns, and the importance of a strategic or the investigation, the plan that we need to prepare by the state. In many cases, for example, family members have not been informed of any measures taken by the authority in charge of search investigation. That is very important, is in relation with the urgent actions. It's important that the state authority, that they need to take all measures, for example, to coordinate between different institutions, and they are responsible for searching for missing persons and investigating their enforced disappearances, to issue regular and transparent report on the progress made during this kind of urgent action. This is a part of the requesting that we usually have during the urgent action process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carmen, for your answer. And we have another question, please, from Ms. Carmen Abu Jawde. Also, she is the member of the National Commission on Enforced Disappearance in Lebanon. She is asking you and Mr. Juan Pablo how the committee can help the National Commission despite the fact that Lebanon did not ratify yet the convention.
Well, it is important to note that until Lebanon has ratified the convention, the committee has no specific competence to address the situation of enforced disappearances in Lebanon. However, it is also important to note that there's another monitoring body, which is a special procedure of the Human Rights Council, the Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances, which coexists with the committee and cooperates with the states in their fight against enforced disappearances, precisely in those situations where the states are not parties to the International Convention on Enforced Disappearances. So I would say that while, as I mentioned before, Lebanon could use as a basic reference on the national policy to address the situation of the disappeared, the guiding principles issued by the committee, and of course the committee is open to have conversations like this with states. If the state is not a party to the convention, then probably the dynamic of the exchange and the conversation would be better with the working group, which actually addresses the situation for those countries that are not parties to the convention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Juan Pablo. Ms. Carmen, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you very much for inviting us. This is very important conference, virtual conference, and we are in your disposition to help you and to give you some other information. And I think this is a really good opportunity to recall to Lebanon to ratify the convention, and in the way that they did it when they approved or they accepted the recommendation made by the UPR during the second and the third session. And thank you very much for this opportunity. And again, I give you my all support to do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carmen. I have also another question from Ms. Carmen Abu Jawde as well. This question is addressed to Mr. Michel Musa. So, Ms. Carmen عم بتقول دكتور ميشيل تكلم النائب ميشيل موسى.
Ms. Carmen is saying that Dr. Michel Musa talked about some political issues that prevented the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection. What is practically preventing the ratification, and is the combating impunity, especially for those who are accused of crime of war in Lebanon, is also another reason for this. Dr. Michel, the question is addressed to you. Would you please answer this question? It seems that Dr. Michel Musa is no longer with us. Ms. Carmen, we will send this question to Mr. Michel Musa and try to obtain his question and insert it in the special report related to this session. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Bassam Al-Antar, and Bassam Al-Antar is the person in charge of the international relations in the Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappearance. He will give us some ideas about the challenges and obstacles faced by the National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared in Lebanon, and he will share his ideas in order to highlight the importance of activating the work of the National Committee in Lebanon. The floor is yours, Mr. Bassam. Good evening, and I would like first to salute all those who are present with us, and I would like to commend the work of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Lebanon for organizing such a conference. First, I would like to highlight and briefly three main issues, given the lack of time, and also I believe that going into details requires a more in-depth session with the people concerned. As to the ratification of this convention, I believe that the issue is first related to this non-clarity of the situation in Lebanon. The government of Lebanon has declared in its last revision of the convention that the previous government and even the previous cabinets, and especially the government of 2019 or late 2018 has succeeded in of having a decree on ratifying this convention. And this decree, and thank God we were able to have this decree to ratify this convention. However, the question is why so there was a decree on the ratification of the Convention on the Disabled. However, the question here is related to why we didn't have another decree related to the ratification of the Convention on the Enforced Disappearance. That is why the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance, and the problem resides in the lack of clarity to the party concerned in taking the first step towards the ratification. And if there is no, we don't have a scenario that is having the cabinet ratify the convention again, and if the cabinet does not consider that this convention is a vital convention and an essential convention, I believe that this convention won't be ratified. I believe that this is in the hand of the cabinet. Second, the legal ratification and the legal work of the Commission, and in parallel with all national independent commissions, I believe that the challenges and difficulties are multilateral and real. There is one main problem related to the regular work of the executive, and this usually the executive requires a certain time in order to achieve their work. For example, we have had 3 consecutive ministers of justice that were not able to implement their work, and the scenario took place again, and it will take place again in relation to the ratification of the International Convention, especially that the late ministers did not really have the political will to ratify this convention. And this is related, and this commission for the missing and forcibly disappeared that is under the Ministry of Justice should have the mandate in order to face all challenges and obstacles. And these obstacles are mainly related to the non-comprehension. And here I am very aware of using this term, is that the authorities, the administrative authorities, do not really understand the concept of the work of the independent commission, whether in terms of administration or finance or the laws into force. That is why we will have further obstacles in terms of the activation of the work of these commissions. In addition to that, there was no progress in the activation of the commission. There won't be any progress in the work of the Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared. And on a personal level, I tried more than one time to have an international coordination and a monthly coordination and even a weekly coordination in order to reach results. And unfortunately, and for reasons we don't know, I don't know, but most of these are related to several reasons. We would say that as a commission, we are concerned in the coordination between the Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared in Lebanon and the International Committee for a Commission for Human Rights. committee for the disappeared, and to intensify the efforts in order to reach a result with the present government before the deadline for the next elections, and in order to have laws and to adopt laws that will help activate these commissions and help implement the work of these commissions. There are many details, but in order to respect the time and in order to give the opportunity for others, I will limit myself to these remarks. Thank you, Mr. Bassam, for your important remarks. We will include your remarks and your intervention in the special report and related to this webinar, and we will submit this report to the Commission, the National Commission and the International Commission. Another question addressed to Ms. Carmen or Mr. Juan and Ms. Salma from the National Commission, and
working group on enforced and involuntary disappearance accepted any complaint from NGOs, civil society organizations related to individual cases on enforced disappearance. And what is the role of the committee in the case of the working group on enforced disappearance acknowledge the act of enforced disappearance and asked or requested the state members to stop this violation? Ms. Carmen? Ms. Carmen? Mr. Juan?
Yes, of course, the working group can also receive information on particular cases and can request information to the state on specific cases until the convention is enforced for a given state. In this particular situation, Lebanon, the committee cannot receive individual complaints nor request for urgent actions, but the working group can do so. I'm not really sure if I understood correctly the question. I don't know if this has to do with past enforced disappearances and how to address the past. Of course, the committee is also, in complying with its duties, interested in past situations. And although there's a provision in the treaty that states that the obligations of the state will take place from the moment of the ratification on, the committee requests informations on the actions taken at the domestic level in order to address the past as well. We do so in the context of our requests for information under Article 29, meaning the follow-up on the report presented by the states.
Thank you, Mr. Juan, for your answer. We have also another question from Ms. Wadat Halawani. She is also a member of the National Commission on Enforced Disappearance in Lebanon. She is asking about the impact of ratifying the convention on the cases of enforced disappearance. So basically, she is asking, does the ratification process impact, the percentage of enforced disappearance in a country? Do you have any information about this?
At the moment, I do not have statistical information. Of course, the fact that international specific obligations on enforced disappearances are in place for a given state could translate in the state adopting national policies and amending the legislation in order to address the phenomenon. So, of course, the numbers will go down by the mere fact that the state will start complying with the obligations under the convention, but I do not have statistical information. My colleague, Milisa Kolakovic, who will participate in a few minutes, might have a statistical information due to the nature of the presentation that she was going to give to you.
Thank you very much Mr. Juan Pablo. شكرا كمان للسادة والسيدات الحاضرين معنا على الأسئلة والتفاعل القيمين جدا.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your questions. Now we will move to our second session of our session today on the effective and practical experiences in joining the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. Now I will give the floor to Mr. Rida Abdelaziz. He is a regional expert in human rights, and he's also the person in charge in the training on human rights in Egypt. Mr. Rida, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Mr. Rida, you need to activate your mic, please. Good evening, can you hear me? Yes, please, we can hear you clearly and we can see you. Mr. Rida, you have the floor. Thank you. I'm really happy to moderate the second session. I have a few comments regarding the cases of enforced disappearance. I know that there is some political confusion in Lebanon. However, we need to treat this phenomena in general in Lebanon. I know that you have institutional problems. I mean by that the institutions competent in terms of combating enforced disappearance, but we need to take proactive actions in order to serve the interest of the victims. Let's not forget that this is one of the most serious offenses and violations of human rights. It does not only affect persons who are forcibly disappeared, it also affects all the community. So I would like to tell you that based on the first session, there is a political will. I sensed a political will in the sense of dealing with this case, but the government would like to have more information about the measures that can be taken. And I will start by giving this floor to Judge Ayman Ahmed. I would like him to comment on what we have mentioned in the first session. The National Commission does not have a budget. Their members have not been appointed yet. And there are really obstacles that need to be overcome. And after that, I will be giving the floor to Judge Angela Dagher. Your Honor, Judge Ayman Ahmed, you have the floor. It's a common intervention. Yes, it's a joint presentation. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Rida Abdelaziz. I would like to thank the Regional Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. I would like to thank you for your efforts you are deploying in the field of coordinating efforts with competent authority to combat enforced disappearance. I would like to answer a few questions that were addressed to us. We were present with one of my colleagues in the discussions that took place regarding the adoption of a budget for the National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared in Lebanon. And the Ministry of Justice approved this idea. However, the salaries of the members of the National Commission could not be equal to the salaries of the members of the Constitutional Council. This was the only reservation, but within the Commission, we asked the Ministry of Finance to provide a financial opinion on how to adopt a budget for the Commission that would be similar to the budget of the Constitutional Council. So the whole topic is between the hands of the Ministry of Finance and not the Ministry of justice. You know that Lebanon is a democracy where all citizens are equal and where they have the right to live. And Lebanon has adhered to the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and various human rights instruments adopted by the United Nations. And we have ratified major international conventions such as the Convention Against Torture, and the government in 2007 signed the Convention on the Protection of All Persons Against Enforced Disappearance, and it was submitted to the Parliament in 2007 for ratification. And during the civil war, we have suffered a lot. There were many violations against life and freedom. In order to forget about this harsh past, in order to overcome those bad memories, and in order to build a community based on human rights and mutual recognition, the Parliament adopted law number 105 in 2018. It's the law regarding the missing and forcibly disappeared in Lebanon. And we know that this law does not replace the convention. We hope that the ratification will happen soon after the end of the discussions. The law number 005 consecrated many rights for the missing and forcibly disappeared persons and their families, including the right to reparation. And the National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared Persons in Lebanon has been mandated to search for the disappeared persons and to search for the victims in order to release them again or repatriate their corpse. We provide support to the families through this National Commission for the Missing and Forcibly Disappeared Person. And this National Commission really needs to start its work in order to do justice to the families of the victims. Regarding the challenges, the main challenge that we are facing is about the membership of this commission. The Ministry of Justice, in cooperation with the High Judicial Council, is working in order to fill this gap and appoint members of the National Commission. After the nomination of or designation of new members in the High Judicial Council, the Minister of Justice will actually designate various candidates for the National Commission, and the various authorities and stakeholders will recommend various candidates upon the recommendation of the Minister of Justice. We also have other obstacles and challenges. The situation is really unstable in Lebanon. There is political instability as well as instability at the economic and social level. And the authorities might not actually respond to the requests submitted to them by the National Commission. According to law number 105, the National Commission has the right to ask for information and documents from the competent authorities in Lebanon as well as from foreign authorities. And it's really important to overcome this challenge. Sometimes the foreign authorities are not responding to our requests. This could lead to hindering the work of the Commission, and we will not be able to reach the fruitful results we would like to reach, and we need to take measures that would make it binding for foreign authorities to cooperate with us. We know that the time that elapsed since the end of the Civil War constitutes another obstacle, because we don't have sufficient databases, we don't have sufficient data, and we don't really have enough information about the missing and forcibly disappeared persons. However, in spite of these obstacles, the Ministry of Justice, within its mandate, is willing and always willing to overcome those difficulties, because it gives paramount importance to the case of the missing and forcibly disappeared persons. The Ministry of Justice was represented in all parliamentary commissions, and they submitted their comments and they participated in many workshops and roundtables. They cooperate with various public authorities and the organizations of the civil society in order to apply the law. Thank you. Mr. Rida, your mic, please. Can you hear me now? Yes. I would like to thank Judge Ayman Ahmed, the representative of the Ministry of Justice. Mr. Rida, can you please activate your mic? Can you unmute your mic? We cannot hear you, says the interpreter and the speaker. I guess we have lost Mr. Rida. Mr. Rida, you have the floor. One minute, please. Mrs. Lin, can you hear me now? Yes, Mr. Rida. Yes, I was saying I would like to thank Judge Angela Dahir and Judge Ayman Ahmed. And we have heard the statement of the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice is trying to fill the gap in terms of the membership of the National Commission. I believe that this is a good progress. I believe that the Commission will be able to reinitiate its work, especially when the budget will be completed and will be allocated to the Commission and when they will have offices to work from within. This is a really good step forward. Now I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Milica Kolakovic, Vice President of the United Nations Committee on Enforced Disappearances. I believe that she will be talking about successful experiences from the world and the region in ratifying the International Convention and what are the best practices in cooperation with the relevant United Nations Committee for Lebanon and for the whole Arab region. You have the floor, ma'am.
Hear me?
Yes, please.
Great. Your Excellencies and dear colleagues, of course, I'm grateful for this opportunity to take part in this webinar. And let me briefly introduce myself. As you already heard, my name is Milica Kolakovic-Bojovic, and I'm member of the committee since 2017. And so since 2019, I'm also the Vice President of the committee. And yes, today I will try to raise several issues relevant for the positive experience of the committee. And since we are running out of time, I will try to speak briefly. First of all, I would like to share with you my impression that when we are talking about ratification, somehow we are talk mostly about the processes, and we are talk mostly about additional obligations to the state party, mostly related to legislative interventions and to additional workload related to reporting. But somehow I have impression that we are missing the key issue, the main message. And the key issue when it comes to ratification is to make an impact in reality. And when we are talking about the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances, I believe that our main goal should be to make an impact on victims. So you already heard that committee has recently celebrated its 10th anniversary, and so far our practice has shown that the ratification of the convention and the consequent activities of the committee aimed at efficient implementation of the convention in a state party can result actually in the significant and tangible impact on victims of enforced disappearances in that state party. As previous speakers, mostly Mr. Juan Pablo Alban, explained, the main activities of the committee in terms of overseeing of the implementation of the convention goes through the several parallel tracks, namely through the reviewing of the state parties' reports and follow-ups in order to define concluding observations and to provide clear recommendations to the state parties on how to improve their legislation and their practices. In parallel, there is an urgent actions procedure. Also, there is a procedure of the individual and interstate communications, and also there is an important part of the committee's work related to the adoption of the general comments and various guidelines directed to support the state parties to implement some provisions of the convention, or even aimed at improvement of the implementation of all provisions of the convention, but when enforced disappearances occur in some specific contexts. So if we are aware of all of these parallel tracks, I would like to raise your attention to the few examples of good practices directly influenced by the committee's work. The first of all, in more than several state parties, comprehensive legislative changes have been made to follow committee's recommendations. Good examples of that could be, for example, Mexico, or recently Spain. During the 21st session of the committee held a month ago, a committee has adopted its report on the follow-up actions implemented by Spain to implement recommendations of the committee. And by this occasion, committee concluded that the Spain has made great steps in order to follow up recommendations of the committee and prepare the adoption of the Act number 4 from 2015 on the status of victims of crime. So the intention of the states was to follow the committee's recommendation to prepare the comprehensive policy to deal with the rights of the victims of enforced disappearances. But also, it might be interesting for you to know that sometimes the trigger for such a decision of the state to adopt a comprehensive policy is not based only on the recommendations from the concluding observations. For example, my state, Serbia, was triggered by the adoption of the guiding principles for search adopted in 2019. So my government made a decision to prepare for adoption a new law on missing persons as a comprehensive policy to address search for missing persons, step-by-step procedure and coordination, but also to ensure support to the victims and their family members. In addition to legislative changes, a great impact has been made through the urgent actions procedure, which resulted in locating disappeared persons. For example, someone asked about statistics. So far, 107 persons have been located, and 83 of them have been located alive based on the urgent actions procedure. And I believe that these data don't require additional explanation, since it's not only about more than 100 direct victims of enforced disappearances. It's about basically a few thousand of their family members, relatives, and close persons who suffered from enforced disappearances of their loved ones. Also, now we are hoping to be able soon to close the urgent actions concerning recent protests in Cuba and Colombia, and in that case, this number of 107 is going to be much bigger. When it comes to the urgent action procedure, I would like also to mention the recent decision of the Mexican Supreme Court to declare the binding character of urgent actions. Namely, on June 16 this year, the Supreme Court made a decision in which it stated that CD, urgent actions, have a binding character for all authorities of the state party. This case was submitted by an NGO, IDEAS, that has presented many urgent actions to the committee, and they did so on behalf of the disappeared person and his mother, after state authorities told the mother that they did not have any obligations to take into account CED recommendations. So if you consider the fact that in the moment of rendering that decision of the Supreme Court, there were more than 450 cases of urgent actions of missing persons ordered to the Mexican state, it's clear that such a decision is going to have a significant impact on victims and their families in Mexico. Namely, this decision is an important step to recognize victims of enforced disappearances and to recognize their right to be searched and to reiterate states' obligation to act with due diligence, carrying out all actions necessary for searching a missing person since the first moment disappearance is reported. So in this context, it might be interesting for you to know about statistics from the region. Currently, there are 5 urgent actions on Morocco, 1 referring to Oman and 1 referring to Tunisia. And also it's important to mention that states have responded to all of these requests. And also, sometimes urgent actions mechanisms resulted in establishing international cooperation. For example, following a recommendation to the state party in one case of urgent actions related to Honduras, international cooperation between Honduras and other state parties have been established in order to act upon requests of the committee. And finally, there is also important mechanism of the committee to make a real impact. This is a procedure related to the protection of the NGO activists and the members of associations of family members of missing persons.
سيادة الخبيرة بس يعني
related
أرجو إنه
to
يعني قدامنا أقل من يعني يكفي نص دقيقة يعني لأنه السيدة رئيسة المجلس الوطني في المغرب.
Excuse us, but we're running out of time. We're sorry, but we're trying to be briefer.
Sentence to conclude.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah. I just want to mention the procedure of the committee to protect NGO activists and the family members of the associations of the family members of missing persons from the reprisals or intimidations after their decision to address the Committee on Enforced Disappearances. Thank you for your attention.
Many thanks, Ms. Melissa, for this valuable.
الخبرة المتنوعة من سياق مختلف يعني قدرنا نستفيد منها من الجميع يقدر يحقق.
Thank you for your experience and expertise in the different contexts that you mentioned. At this point, we will be listening to the intervention of Mrs. Amina Abu Ayyash from Morocco. Mrs. Amina Abu Ayyash, President of the National Council for Human Rights in the Kingdom of Morocco, which has a wide experience in dealing with human rights. And we want to make sure that we listen to the different experiences to relate the contexts in which we can deal with forced disappearances. First of all, good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we'd like to congratulate the head of the regional bureau. Hello, Ruwaida, how are you? First of all, to support the families of the disappeared and to the NGOs who work on this matter in order to reach a stage where the Convention on Disappeared People is ratified. So first of all, I'm very happy, and I'm very happy as long as with my team from Rabat to be with you today. We were not able to follow from the beginning of the session, but actually my team was able to follow, and they will be following up as well later on the different problems and challenges and points that were tackled during this session. No doubt that the head of the committee has mentioned the importance of this convention. This convention has known a long history when it comes to putting and ratifying and all the stages that were related to this convention. Although we haven't really reached half the number of the states that would ratify on this convention. Even last year, a lot of NGOs were speaking about this convention. When it comes to the experience of Morocco, I can say that when it comes to the experience of Morocco, we can actually combine my experience as an activist in an NGO and what I know has been done to move on with the ratification of the convention, but also to move on with the issues of forced disappearance in Morocco. As you all know, Morocco has been among the 3 countries that worked on raising and promoting this convention, and they still do. And Morocco, Argentina and Morocco, each year they raise a decision for the UN Secretary General and the General Assembly to actually promote this convention. In Morocco, when it comes to forced disappearance, this issue has known different stages and steps and linkages with political issues and political conditions and situations and coups and attempts of military coups in Morocco. The council, the Human Rights Council in Morocco, that is known the National Council for Human Rights in Morocco, that was developed in the last years, in 1991 has formed a specific committee to work on different issues, especially on the violations of human rights, including the issue of forced disappearances and enforced disappearances. During the same stage and at the same period, we also launched a lot of NGOs and active people from different political parties on the national level, or journalists or academics and university professors. We all launched together what could be called the national path to move forward into ratifying the Convention on Enforced Disappearance. So all these groups worked closely and extensively together for years and years. And I still remember, and I'm responsible in the Moroccan Association for Human Rights, that I was actually responsible for the first political file on enforced disappearances, and we actually submitted some of the names that we were able to reach. It was one way to reach and communicate with the families of the disappeared, especially that such families were not really present on the political scene or the social scene through political parties or through any groups. So since that moment, we started connecting with the families of the disappeared and of the victims of forced disappearance and enforced disappearance. And we were very active when it comes to dealing with political parties and on the media to move on with the ratification of the convention and to work more on making the issue of enforced disappearance of high importance and to put it on the agendas of the policymakers and to the relevant people. And then we had the committee that was formed, and we wanted to actually pay for the families of the disappeared, whether they were killed or they stayed alive, and regardless of the reason behind their disappearance, be it that they were disappeared because of the state apparatus in Morocco or not. So we wanted to provide them with redemption. And we linked this mission of working on enforced disappearance and finding the truth and finding the reasons behind such disappearance. And to also know and discover the places where such people were disappeared. So we worked on the media, on promoting the testimonies of the people that were released after being disappeared and after being missing in 1991. And such testimonies from people who were exposed to forced disappearance helped widely in having more people work on the issue, on such issues, or to work on, in general, on human rights violations issues. And this is the occasion that allowed us at the time to actually find more information on enforced disappearance and to refine our ways and tools and symbols and ways of dealing with this issue to promote further studies on the issue of enforced disappearance. In 1991, there was a consensus, a political consensus and democratic consensus in Morocco, and such a context allowed us to work more on the issue of enforced disappearance and to know how to actually launch it, how to actually work on it during the democratic transition. And this was a very important occasion for the participation and engagement of government officials in this issue. And this is something that the Moroccan Organization on Human Rights was very active on. They worked actively to put an end to human rights violations, and their efforts actually led to the birth of the Council of the Human Rights Council in Morocco. And we chose the national organization at the time because we wanted we really knew that if we want to find a committee, if we want to establish a committee to find the truth, such a committee needs to be established by the acceptance of the Moroccan state. And this is when the national organization used was the National Council for Human Rights in the Kingdom of Morocco that was coordinating with other NGOs, and we were coordinating with its members, with its president, and we're checking the recommendations that they have raised to the General Assembly and to the King of Morocco. And based on that, in 2004, we had a committee established for reconciliation and for compensation of for the families of the missing and the disappeared. But the most important thing is to actually find out the truth and to equip the prisons and to equip the different infrastructures and to provide much more policy recommendations and programmatic recommendations for the state and for the different relevant bodies, which were actually incorporated in the in the new constitutional amendments of Morocco. So we can see that the committees did actually abide by the international standards for the protection of the enforcibly disappeared persons. Though we saw that the efforts really were reaching all the committees, especially the reconciliation committee. So the spirit of cooperation was there between the two mechanisms that we were using, especially the transitional justice. We were trying to rely on the mechanism of transitional justice because we wanted to put an end for that. So the Committee for Reconciliation worked on compensating the families and to analyze the policies that allowed for such breaches of human rights to happen. And they presented new recommendations to move on with the Convention with the human rights. So the main aim was to move on with the right to life. And during that period, in 1991, and even before the Committee for Reconciliation, around 400 disappeared were released and they were still alive. And by that, Morocco was the first country to release 400 disappeared persons after they were disappeared and they were missing and they were found alive afterwards. So I think we can say that the committee was able to find out the truth about the destiny of the disappeared people. More than 9,000 persons were able to benefit from the medical card and medical benefits. They were able to benefit from social services. And especially a lot of people were kicked off from their work for some political reasons and for reasons related to the chaos happening in the country. So the work of this committee was not only limited to providing compensations and finding out the truth and documenting what happened, but also it transcended to what is medical and social services and to reconsider the moral aspect and moral compensation for those who were disappeared and missing, and especially those that were not in the age of employment. They were able to get back their employment opportunities. So this committee was able to raise recommendations on the age for employment. So they had specific recommendations, policy recommendations on the age of employment. So this committee provided great recommendations that are some kind of references for us to date on guaranteeing the right to life, the right to being able to guarantee human rights for everyone. And most importantly, to criminalize first enforced disappearance, to criminalize torture, to criminalize anything that is against human rights, to criminalize the conditions that lead to human rights violations, and to criminalize hate speech, discrimination, racism, which are all points that are enshrined in the Constitution of the Kingdom of Morocco and that were adopted in the criminal law of the Kingdom of Morocco and of the recommendations related to it. So there was a national strategy on impunity that was also set forth. Please allow me, Mrs. I am really interested in the experience of the Kingdom of Morocco. and we never get enough from listening to the experience of the Kingdom of Morocco. I really thank you a lot, and I'd like to conclude what you just mentioned, that there's a need to focus on partnering with different bodies, including the media, to pressure towards the ratification of the convention, and to work more with the families of the victims of enforced disappearance. We're looking at this transition phase in Morocco, and looking into the issues of enforced disappearance, we can say that this is a really prompt experience.
هناخد 3 أسئلة سريعا.
Since we run out of time, we will take only 3 questions. And once again, we reassure you that all discussions and questions and answers will be included in the report that will be sent to all participants. So let's take the first question now. We have 1, 2, and 3 questions so far. Your Excellency the Judge, there are no questions. So if there are no more questions, we would like to thank all participants. Thank you very much for all participants and all speakers and all colleagues. We would like to salute our colleagues from Morocco and Egypt and all other countries, and I would like to thank all judges and Dr. Michel Moussa and all members of the National Committee and International Commission. Thank you very much, and God be with you. Thank you.